maybe portrait and a bit of corporate photography within that, because they're both good earners. Look at your local landscape, look at your local businesses, see what out there, and it doesn't sound glamorous, does it? It doesn't sound like Vogue magazine, it doesn't sound like GQ, but what it is it's regular income. And do you want to have to do a photo shoot once a month and then work, I don't know, in Mackey's or Morrison's for the rest of the month? Or do you want to become good at networking, at speaking to people, at convincing people to buy into you, and shoot pretty mundane portraits, corporate portraits, boardroom stuff in poor lighting, and make it work and get paid for it? What do you want to do? Because most serious photographers, the cream of the crop photographers that you see, the names in Vogue and that all the time, are just extremely rare. Most working photographers do the grunt work because they want to be photographers. And you've almost kind of got to become immune to the fact that you're only working in where I am in Rotherham and Sheffield, photographing stuff for businesses. And it's not Milan, because it doesn't matter. You're a working photographer, respected, who is building relationships, who is savvy enough to be continually in touch with people to kind of keep you in their line of sight. So they're constantly thinking about wanting new photographs and updates and changes. And you're their go-to person because you're in their line of sight. If you've done a great shoot for them and then rest on your laurels a little bit because you're over here or you're doing this, as a businessman you've failed, as a photographer you've failed. So the biggest kind of mind shift from artist to business owner is the thing where most photographers fall down, because it is seriously hard, mind-numbing, tedious, long work. It really is. But if you want to be that person who's getting those bookings, who's working 2 or 3 or 4 days a week for £500,000, £2,000 shoot, you've got to put in that legwork. You've got to always be at it. And it's not like I said before, it's not like, oh, you're 90% marketer, 5% photographer, 5% accountant, or whatever it is. It's a way of life. It's a bit like, I equate it to 20 years ago plus, I used to be a publican. I had a couple of pubs. And sometimes people think a publican's just a barman. Oh, just pull pints. It's a way of life. It's a literal way of life. You have got to get up at 7, prep for the day, sort your staff, all that. It's a way of life. And I got into a rhythm, up at 7, then go to bed well after midnight. But I chose that because I loved it at that time. I was a bit younger, a bit more energetic. It's a way of life. And photography, becoming a successful photographer, is exactly the same thing. You have got to become, it's got to become your way of life. And part of that way of life is you networking, doing the grunt work, going to the boring meetings, negotiating with people, kissing arse, if you like. But what do you want to do? Do you really want to be successful? Or do you just want to live in that pipe dream where you're in Vogue, you're Mario Testino, or whoever it is? Because you might think your work's a lot on par with them, and it probably is. There's a lot of good photographers out there making no money. But the Mario Testinos of this world are one in hundreds of thousands. And you're within the hundreds of thousands. So while you're waiting, while you're trying to make that opportunity, what are you doing? Are you actually down doing the grunt work? Are you actually looking at local businesses, firing prospective emails out, knocking on doors, making phone calls, going to networking events? Are you part of the local Chamber of Commerce? What are you doing locally? Because if you're not a master of your own backyard, how do you expect to get to Milan, to New York, to all those other places to do the work, to get the big bucks? And I think there's a bit more of a fallacy as well, as people think that shooting for local companies and on local scene, the money's not good. Well, trust me, the money is out there for it. You can charge certainly in the thousands for corporate packages for companies who need updates for their, even just for their website, for their brochures, for their whatever it is. You can earn good money then on retainers. If you understand how licensing works, if they want to, if you've shot something for a local company, they love the pictures, they decide they're going to do a national campaign. Have you negotiated the right for them to use those pictures for that? Is that a part of your licensing dealing with that? When you consider all that stuff, you could be earning some good money. And I've spoken And I've read a few blogs by some really prominent photographers just recently. Been doing quite a lot of research on this very topic. A little bit because it interests me, and I always like to be informed of what's happening and what's expected, what the trends are, where things are working. But a little bit of me is starting to want to get at and do a little bit more photography, so I'm just looking where the work is. And if you're savvy, if you're really switched on, if you're really working hard, if your persona becomes a photographic business persona where you are living the life, you're you know you're in, all you do is from the minute you wake up consider what you're doing today to build more business. If that's your frame of mind, if that's the person you've become, then certainly earning 35 to 40, maybe even £50,000 a year just from your local economy is entirely doable if you pitch it right and you work hard enough in the right places. And I was surprised that the small handful of people who are doing that I've spoken to and read about are doing that, because it excited me actually. Because if you're online, social media, that everything's just AI, and it's just an AI minefield, and you feel like photography's been destroyed. But actually, on the ground, in the real world, not in the cyber world, not in the dreamland world, not in the I wish I were up here world, in the real world, outside your front door, people still want and need photographs, and they're still willing to pay good money for those photographs. Because they can't do it themselves. They don't know how to use AI. If they did use AI, it wouldn't give them what they wanted. They need a good, solid, reliable photographer who delivers what they said they were going to do for the budget they said they were going to do it, to the quality they said they were going to do it, and more importantly, in the time frame they said they were going to do it. And if you can become that all-encompassing business photographer, whilst you're keeping your eye out for those opportunities and still pushing and hoping for those bigger pipe dream opportunities, you will earn enough money that you don't have to go and work at Mackey's or do that arduous day job that you hate to pay for your craft, because you have stopped being a hobbyist and become a serious photographer. And the only real difference between an art photographer and a serious photographer is that approach. How do I get my work? How do I get people to pay me to create work? Doesn't matter how good your portfolio is. If you think even if you're paying for Google ads and you think people are seeing your work, they're not. And if they are, you're 30th down the list. Get out, knock on doors, make phone calls, send emails. Once you've done that and you've impressed them, keep in touch, keep warm. Not to an annoyance fact, but periodically. How's it going, team? Still love those images we did. They were great. Have you got any other plans on the horizon? Have you seen what this company's doing? Build relationships, build dialogue. Ensure that you are always kind of ready and not caught on the hop. If the company comes back to you, what's your plan like? What's your availability like? And it's a very difficult, time-consuming, hard thing to do all that. People don't think that photography is a difficult thing to do. I've had student photographers come on a photography course because they think it's going to be something easy for a couple of years, and then they realise after a few weeks, oh shit, this is actually hard work. This is serious hard work. Photography is. Just being a photographer, creating the pictures, just going and doing the couple of hours gig, just doing the half-day portrait, whatever, that is mentally consuming, physically consuming, particularly if you're older like me and your joints are going, you go bad back and all that. It can be absolutely debilitatingly tiring. And then you're going to spend all the rest of your time at home being a great editor, being a great archivist, being a great publisher, a great marketer, and all the other stuff that comes from business. You're going to be self-employed, you're going to do your tax, you're going to do all that stuff. But you work at it, you work hard at it, you spend time doing it, and over a few months, maybe half a year, it's become second nature to you, and you are now this entity that's not just a photographer, you're also a business person. And you're good to go, and you've got work coming in, and you've got relationships built, That's how you start to become that photographer you want to be. And you didn't need an agent. You just needed the savvy to know what to do locally as your start. And it might be that you've done some of this and you've got some, which is great, but have you done enough? Have you applied it enough? And I can be honest and say to you, on my doorstep, I haven't, because I haven't needed to. And if I'm going to consider myself now getting back into doing more photography, I need to up my game in those areas, and I know that instantly. And I need to make new acquaintances. I need to start to go to places. And I will do that. But that's the starting point. That's the foundation for you to push on to head towards that place where you want to be. And it's not a quick journey, not a quick fix. There'll be lots of headaches, lots of tears, lots of frustration. You'll want to quit every other day. But just keep telling yourself, as a photographer, if I want to get there, I've first got to go here. And don't be afraid to do that quite, I don't know what the phrase is, mediocre gig on your doorstep, because that's the stepping stone. And I'll equate it back to music again, as being a musician. You've got to start somewhere as a musician. You can be the best garage band in the world, but if nobody hears you, what's the point? So you do your couple of free gigs locally, and then you might go a bit further and get 50 quid, 100 quid, couple hundred quid. You might put a CD out, or now you might stream something out. Suddenly somebody hears you, but you've got a bit of a foundation, more than you would have had if you'd have just done the garage thing and then expected somebody to pick you off the shelf. Grow as a provider photography services, and including that, your own savvy, your own understanding, your own hard work, and people will buy into that, trust me. So while you're thinking about how you're going to get your kind of local scene wrapped up, and it might be that you kind of like further end game is to get an agent, but that agent will buy into you better if you can already do and understand all this stuff. But forget about the agent. You're your own agent. Your end game is to be published in esteemed magazines. Great. While you're waiting for that to happen, you're looking at, I'll use myself as an example. My favourite thing to photograph is people. And because I like the interaction, I like the dynamic, I like trying to capture the personality, that's what does it for me. Portrait, beauty, hair and fashion are the things I enjoy most there, because they're the most technically challenged, both from a lighting, an edit, composition, a communication kind of standpoint. So when I get that right, that's the biggest buzz I get.